Welcome to the series where you're going to learn how to build, deploy, and sell AI apps using ChatGPT. And this is going to be our part 2 video of the series where we're going to create a ChatGPT clone using Python. So just before we get into the details of what we're going to do today in this part 2 video, let's just do a recap of what we did in our part 1. So in our last video, we looked at how we can retrieve an API key from OpenAI. So if we go back to what we did last time, we went here to this API key section and we created a new secret key. So basically what we did is that we got an API key from OpenAI, and today what we're going to be doing is we're going to use this API key and actually put it to the test and integrate it with a Python app. And also, just to clarify one thing, just note that this is not going to be the final project in our series. However, this video is just supposed to be an idea of how we can integrate the API key with Python. And later on in this series, we're going to be creating another app and actually deploying that app and also adding some payments to it. And with that out of the way, now let's check what we're going to be doing inside of this part 2 video. So this is what we're going to be coding today. Basically, we're going to be creating a website, and this will work as a ChatGPT clone. So you can see that we have a ChatGPT clone up here, and we have a box that has our chat messages. And just like ChatGPT, we're able to actually send a message, and then we're going to also get a response back. So let's just quickly test this out to see how it will look like. So let's just ask, what is the world's population? And now all we do is just press submit. And we can see that here we get a new bubble that says you, and whatever the question you asked is put here. So what is the world's population? And then we get a response from OpenAI saying whatever the world population is. So this is basically what we're going to be creating today. And without further ado, let's get right into the Python code. So the code editor that I'm going to be using today is called PyCharm, and I already have all the code already here, so feel free to copy along. And also, if you don't want to follow along from each line and writing it all down, the source code for this video today will also be in the description and also inside of the pinned comment if you don't feel like writing all of this code by hand. Anyways, let's get started. I'm just going to be explaining each line of code and what it means, and you guys can follow along. The first thing that we did was we imported two libraries. One of them is called Flask. Flask is going to help us with our actual web application, and to get it up and running, we're going to be using OpenAI just to get the actual API key so that we can get all of our results from ChatGPT. So next, we're providing an instance for the Flask object, and the argument name here helps Flask to know where to look for resources such as templates or also static files. Next, we have our OpenAI.API key, and this is where we're going to be setting our OpenAI key. And this line of code here is needed so that we can actually make an OpenAI API call. And basically here, you're going to be inserting whatever key that you made from our previous video. So whatever key you have, just paste it right here, and then we can continue. So once you pasted your OpenAI key, here we're going to be defining the route for the actual home page, and this tells Flask what to display at the main URL of the web app. So we're going to just write app.route, and then we're going to define index. And this basically here just returns and renders the actual HTML template. And this should be inside of our templates folder, which I'll be showcasing later on. Once that is done, we're going to come down here and we're going to define the route for the /get URL. And this will handle the logic for generating response to the user input. So here, this is going to be our next function called getBot responses. And here, this is where we're going to actually get the response from the bot. So here, we're going to get the message parameter value from the URL request. And there should be a user's input text too. And down here is where we're going to create a prompt completion with OpenAI using the user's text. And this generates a text response based on the user's input. So here we can see we have a response is equal to OpenAI completion.create. And this is basically the engine and all the settings that we have to get the response from the actual bot. So the engine that we're using is called text-davinci-003. And this is basically just the AI model that we're going to be using. Next, we have this prompt is equal to user's text, and that means all the user's input will be saved inside of this prompt here. And next we have our max tokens is equal to 1024, and this is basically just the maximum length of the response that we're going to get from the actual ChatGPT bot. And next we have n is equal to 1, and this means that the number of generated response that we're going to get in return. So we don't want more than 1, so that's why we're limiting n is equal to 1. And next we have stop is equal to none, which means that the tokens at which generation will stop early. And finally we have temperature is equal to 1, which basically controls the randomness of the output. And the higher values closer to 1, that means the more random your responses will be. And once that's done, we're going to extract the generated text from the response object and convert it to a string, which basically means we're going to get our answer and return it as a string. And once that's done, we're going to check if the script is being run directly, and if so, then we're going to start the actual Flask development server. And also the app.run, we're going to be using the port of 5001. And that basically summarizes everything that we have inside of our main.py file. And now let's go over to our HTML page to see how our front end will look. Inside of the templates, we're going to create a new file called index.html. And this file has all of our front end, so what the user sees, and I'm just going to explain once again whatever this is. So first of all, we're just going to add a title to the web page, and then we're going to link a style sheet from Bootstrap because they have really nice styles. And then here this is all the CSS, so all of this you can just copy it down. This is just going to be the styles of how it looks like, but then the actual HTML will start inside of this body. So we're going to start off with having a div, and we're going to give it a class of container, and we're going to create a header called ChatGPT clone. And once that's done, this is going to be the container for the actual chat messages. And here we can see that we have our div for the actual chat messages, and then the channel here div will contain all of our chat messages. And initially when we start the web page, it's going to be empty. Further on, this is going to be the input field for users to actually type their message. And here the user's input will be captured from this text field, and this button will get triggered when the chat is clicked. And here we're just using some jQuery library, and you can copy this down as well. And here's actually where our JavaScript will happen. So when this part here is when the submit button gets clicked, then this function will start to run. And this function basically just gets the user's input from the text field. And then what happens is that we send a GET request to the GET route from our server with the user's input as a query parameter. And then this server will respond to the bot's reply. And then we're going to pen this so that the user's message will go over to the chat div. And then here, this is where we're going to be actually constructing the HTML to be added. And once that's done, then we're going to pen this HTML to the chat div. And that sums up everything for our HTML page as well. So this is basically just our HTML page, and this is our main.py page. And now let's run this to see how this will actually work. So to run this, we're just going to come up here and press the green button, which says run.main. And then down here, you should get something like this. And here we're going to be seeing a warning. You can ignore this warning. It doesn't really have any effect. It's just telling us that this is not actual server deployment. It's just going to be on our actual local machine. So now what we're going to do is just click on this link that they provide us. So once we click that, inside of our browser, application or website should actually open up. And we can see that we got our actual ChatGPT clone, which looks exactly like this. So now let's just try it one more time to see how it works. So let's just test out some query that we can write to our ChatGPT OpenAI. Let's just write, what is the population of the world? And let's submit that. And we can see we have our you here, which is us submitting our actual question. And then OpenAI responds, the population of the world is estimated to be 7.6 billion people as of April 2020. And just like that, we created our own ChatGPT clone. And you can keep on asking any questions and keep on submitting, and it's going to work just the same as how ChatGPT would work. But just keep in mind, the more messages you submit here, the more tokens and usage credit the OpenAI will take inside of the usage tab. And you can check this by going back to the usage tab as we saw last time. So if we come back to this page and press usage on the left, we can see that we have, and you can see that you're going to be charged a little bit of money, and that is because you're using the API service that OpenAI is providing. But don't worry, it's going to be a really small percentage of your $5 that you have. And just like that, that's how you can actually create a ChatGPT clone using the OpenAI's API key service and also integrating Python with it as well. Thank you so much for watching this part 2 video, and if you do have any comments, feel free to comment them down in the comment section below.